Good evening. My name is Bill Michael, and it is my privilege and pleasure to be the Executive Director of the Reva and David Logan Center for the Arts, and it's really wonderful to have you here for the second annual, or I should just say second, maybe I shouldn't say annual yet, kickoff of the second Reva Logan Poetry Series. I love this series for many reasons, both because it gives us a really wonderful opportunity to partner with our colleagues at Creative Writing and Poem Present, but also because it gives us a chance to honor Reva Logan, who unfortunately passed away just less than a year ago. But it was her and her father and their family that made it possible for us to all be in this wonderful room with these wonderful views, and most importantly, engaging in great conversations and the creation of great art, both with our faculty and students and in community. And I want to thank Dan Logan, their son, who's here tonight, for the support of the family and the foundation in making this possible. So thank you so much, Dan. I also want to thank Lee Fagan and Mitch Marr from the Logan staff and Annie Janusz from Creative Writing, who in fact are the ones, along with Chiku Reddy, who do all the work, about which more I'll say. And finally, I just want to say that what's so exciting about this is not only the reading you're going to hear tonight and the wonderful conversations that Fanny is having and the lecture she's going to give tomorrow, but the other activity that it inspires. So last Sunday at the Dorchester Project, which is the community organization on the South Side, 10 members of our community working with a wonderful local poet spent time both talking about and reading Fanny's work and then writing their own poems inspired by her work as a way to begin to be excited about this great evening. And it's really great how these projects both impact campus and the South Side and the city, and it's so great to welcome you all here. If it is your first time at the Logan Center, I certainly hope it's not your last, and I hope you'll come back often. And it is now my real pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Chiku Reddy, who, with his colleagues, is really the curatorial vision behind this great series and a great colleague, and has been from the time this started a year ago when we first opened. Chiku, thanks.
Hi, thanks to you all for coming and for turning off your cell phones. And thank you to the Logan Foundation for making this series possible, and to Bill and everybody at the Logan Center for all the work they put into this series. In the prose reflection that concludes her latest book of poetry, Come and See, Fanny Howe remembers coming across some miscellaneous documents written by her friend, the Polish novelist and Holocaust survivor, Ilona Karmel, while emptying out boxes of papers in her attic a few years ago. I found handwritten notes that Karmel had made, perhaps for a class, on passages from Proust, Henry James, and Franz Rosenzweig. And there were 2 pages of random observations of the sort that are found in notebooks, but in this case, they were on loose sheets. They struck me as many such writings do, as having a power in their very roughness and haste, writes Howe, before going on to add that these cuttings from Karmel's thoughts help us see that she looked for meaning in every spare moment, how swiftly it comes and goes. Reading Howe's work feels something like entering into this scene of discovery. Each new work of hers is a successive volume in the literary notebooks of someone who seeks meaning in every spare moment, and who knows all too well how swiftly it comes and goes. I was one of the lucky ones, privileged to live a few decades in peace, if without stature or particular beauty or grace or fame, just watching and taking notes at the company gates. Howe's dispatches from the company gates show that the notebook isn't just the lumber room of literary art, but a complex form in itself that allows us intimate access to its author's iterative search for historical, theological, and phenomenological meaning. Pollen is summer snow. the great programs have ended. There is a little trouble in my eye. Howe's notes aggregate and disperse meaning, like Wallace Stevens' notes toward a supreme fiction, or Aimé César's notebook of a return to the native land, or the notes written by Simone Weil during her 3 weeks in a North African transit camp. The poem that you have in your hands now is a page from a reader's notes, responding to the work of the Russian symbolist poet Innokenty Anensky. But like all reading notebooks, it's a dream journal too. Last night, I dreamed I was in a peaceful place, but woke up freezing and ashamed. In an interview, Howe once said that if someone is alone reading my poems, I hope it would be like reading someone's notebook, a record of a place, beauty, difficulty, a familiar daily struggle. Her deeply consoling work is daybook and ledger to innumerable awakenings in that familiar daily struggle. It is a dream journal for those who cannot find rest. I traveled to the page where scripture meets fiction. The paper slept, but the night in me woke up. Please join me in welcoming Fanny Howe.
Thank you all for coming here tonight, and to Chico for that beautiful introduction. I hope you can hear me because the little thing fell off. Oop. Is it all right? Yeah, okay. Yes, I had sort of planned to start out reading the poem to Anensky, who was born in the middle of the 19th century, a forgotten Russian who was tremendously influential on the Silver Age poets. But he died suddenly at a young age, and his work disappeared. And you find really horrible translations of his poems online. And somehow, if you look long enough at bad translations, you can still see the poem underneath it all trying to come up to you almost through the spaces between the lines. And this is how I felt about this, that I ended up calling Sheets, not Anensky. And it's with thanks to the Reva and David Logan family for creating this space for poets forgotten and not. So the sky was yellow, then white snow followed. On a hand was an amethyst, a cube of lilac in hospital light. Whose fault is it when no one visits? Last night I dreamed I was in a peaceful place, but woke up freezing and ashamed. On a side street on my sheets, one I loved passed as a shadow. Maddish, reddish, his fist clenched for a fight. I recalled his body color being soft like a child, the drunken nipples. Honey, I called. We were too late. God and the gods have moved outside the bejeweled blue air and sun motes to where a star is, an amethyst minus a poet. So now I'll just sort of move along to my book that came out in 2007 from Grey Wolf Press. And I do write just sort of along in a line. I don't really have very many poems that are stopped and titled, so it's more like circling the drain in a way. So I'll just go along. This one begins, give me my shawl, my corkscrew, and my cloth bag. Give me my hot water bottle and my book. Give me my stick and my water. One shoe for walking and one to dance. No stability, thirst. The will to keep moving, an instrument's heat. Bald mountains and a spider that was a leaf. The scheme is organic. It knows itself. See that light across the enslaved sea? Redemption time knows when. If I were Jesus, would you slap both sides of my face? If I were Jesus, would you stamp on my hands? If I was Jesus, would you lock me up? Would you make me crawl down the prison hall? Would you cover my head, stick my face in the pot? Would you rape me? If I were Jesus, would you break down the door? Would you wreck the house and terrify my family? If I was Jesus, would you bomb my trees, my place of parables, the fig trees and the rivers of wheat? If I were Jesus, well, I'm not, so please go right ahead. And then I'm going to read another poem, a set of poems called City Limits. And it's really about that brutality is natural as long as it's not human. Rain and a splash of backward glances from horses climbing out of the river. They're factored out of all equations, the luckies. Their shoes ring like elfin hammers and echo on the granite. From the yellow mist, she came to the hospital, bruised all over, and the man asking, "Who did this to you?" But now I don't recall what she answered. The more you lie, the less you remember. Her plan is not to become a ghost at any cost. A female ghost is at the bottom of the barrel. So what's to blame except the horse in the sun? The battlefield is where bombs are planted in a trash can, roosters are crowing, and ink is like mud. A chicken lives in the kitchen. That gas lamp provides a silhouette. History, there are no surprises coming from you, from bodies less than none. Less than none means there is meaning. Even among bags, needles, and bedpans, raindrops make ornaments out of the lights that shine in them. Old human breath and an animal soul lie down on those horsehair pillows. The worst was saved for the best. The worst was served to the children of the non-avaricious. A black tomb of family life, body parts for sale, and no sympathy at all. How can this be happening? Averted face, a grin. And these were kind men to everyone at home. Women loved them. Horses have fallen on horses in a heap of laughing soldiers. No more drama of sulkiness. They are humans and horses together. They're one thing. Genesis foot tap first out of the yard. Once wrongly placed, the rest of the hooves follow. And the pricks in their pants under massive horse-brown tables draw up the plans for continuing slaughter. I felt other people more than I knew them. There were no vapors, even words stank of milk and mouth. Love was like a horse. Once I rose from the bed and left the earth and my nursing baby and flew into the likeness of heaven. But then I volunteered to come back. Yes, I was a brave soldier then. I remember the baby's eyes were closed and the sky never looked so smart. Say I had never had this happen. Where would I be today? The horse's flanks are shiny, they are ears even as they are meat. They listen to the music of human voices and leaves and twitch. Sodomize them, the crowd of bodies cries. Call on the diligence. Cry the rest. In music there is rest. Why did God leave us? Isn't it obvious? Of meaty flanks I sing, I will go down with the polis. Let the police drag me away. Get rid of those tickets. Go to the show. I knew everything was backwards. I didn't need to be told, you were out there, God, or hear all those cafeteria sounds in the light that I am, turning around on a pencil. Teacher leaned forward and amended my story about the yellow horse at the bottom of the road, facing up to where I stood and coated in silver fog. He said there was never any fog in that part of town, and I said nothing, though I was the one who went there. So then I'll read a couple of more cheerful Irish poems, slightly more cheerful. Night. The night is July, the aura is rain. The bay is always at low tide. Green slime covers the sand where herons stop, look, and listen. The sand is as thin as clay. Men in the night leave their caravans and run across black grass to the river Argadine to claim a position for fishing, like waiting at baggage claim. The people in the temperance hall hold a dance that most of them watch from their chairs bitterly. They can see their shoes are history. The world was remade before they died. The herons on the lee are slick with slime fermenting. Lots of money is exchanged in the medieval town. Beer is fomented in silver silos and no fish swim. One day down, carpe diem. No one knows what's coming. The nuclear weapons programs continue. A boy in a trap, drawn by an elegant horse, trots through Clonakilty. Men watch and women shop. Organic food planted in the middle of gourmet olives and jellies. Thanks and help are prayer words in fair trade and churches. Just go in and have a drink at dark. It's a kind of Sabbath. In a public house, you feel safe with the others. By now you know the Black River has fish and flowers on it, white and shaped like strawberry plants. 2 neon kingfishers speed by, blue. Everyone is there for everyone else's fun. Those men in the night aren't so bad. A body, this is what it feels, and this is what it feels like. Sites of massacre and ashes, tin-topped rubble, porcelain ovens, jails awaiting hospital. Not when it's eternal low tide in a place outside, and birds drain the sand with their appetites. And then this is the last poem in this collection. It's called No Sleep, and again it was, I was in Ireland when I wrote it. Now my nests are empty or rotting. Now old skulls moonlight in their holes. Now is the time of the spirit. Tonight, this hour and minute. Find a shell or a flute, inhabit it with music. No ways for a mind, no ways for the inexistent. The fruit tree is pinned to a wall so the fruits are less likely to fall. Fall they will. Clouds are on the ground, rain across a swan, water stopped by stone, rebellious bushes, flowers storm, the white thorn alone with a horse, cool park, a dungeon of leaves and black holes, soggy corridors, no sons, no daughters, no poets, no more house. And that was from Cool Park, where Yeats spent so much time. And now is kind of just a ruin standing there. So this book came out in 2010, Come and See, and it followed, as Chiku was suggesting, on my friendship with Ilona Carmel. But more than that, it followed on 7 years of translating her poems, working with 2 Polish speakers from Polish into English. She had she was 14 when she was put in the camps, and she survived the last one at Buchenwald, where she had her leg amputated. Awful things happened, but she did survive. And she wrote poems while she was there, she and her sister. And these were the poems of children, really, that I was working on. And the effect was so profound of those 7 years of researching and thinking about it and going as far as I could with that, that it influenced the way my writing was afterwards. The beat of my poems seemed to change and get more sort of austere. And I sort of went into another zone writing. And this book, Come and See, the title Come and See is from the apocalypse, where Christ summons everyone to come and see the ruins. And it also comes from a great movie by a Russian filmmaker named Elem Klimov, who was part of the Tarkovsky group, but is less, again, another forgotten Russian. And so this came out of a lot of it from visiting St. Petersburg and hearing that there were old people who lived on high floors who couldn't come down. They were too feeble, so they would just sit at the window looking out. So this poem is called This Eye. I see a child between a star and a boat. It's a silhouette, and there is the child again, now attached to the boat. All black. Look at the weather, the futile wipers beating. I see the child on dry land, now with his granny. Like the boy in a story, he sees fire in wood and words in smoke, and he is good, too good to be far from anyone old. The father and the son are still in a boat out there with spinnakers curved like pillows where they can rest their heads. Spindrift turns into curlews confused by the weather news. The sky is a fish packed in ice. There is a low sun and stiff silver wands on the horizon, and the rudder groans as the father and the ghost pass on. No sun on a grate, but a migraine headache and angry rain on the pavement. The boy wonders why a famous tyrant marched his men into a blizzard, and how the Russians burned Moscow with one candle. He only sees 3 choices: join, kill, or run away. What would his grandmother say? Blessed are you when people hate you and denounce you for choosing eternity. I've humiliated myself so I can participate in the city. I've smothered my own cries in order to survive. I've tied myself down to the number system so I can disappear into the stream of the economy. Whenever an old woman is seen going into a dark forest with 2 children, you know they're escaping. They're not dying. Why else would they be so bright of eye? These long white days have gone by with no recording. Therefore, they're free. But what about the injustices viewed from the window? Intuitive women have power over others but don't know it. A boy reads about war in bed with his grandmother. She keeps getting up to look out. What she sees horrifies her. That's why she pulls the curtains, to protect the love she can't see. Some children went ahead to enter a familiar enclosure, stepped the space, and were permitted occupancy. A quick tap into panic. Home was a continual theme. Actually, orphans were useful out of fear of the touch of their keepers. The children took care of each other, wrapping the littlest in wallpaper ripped from their squat. Warmth was as short of supply as hope was not. And I'll move forward. The witness. Behold the broken hearts, backs, and parts of nature evolved to follow a finite path. Behold the gray rain in a house of mirrors, oak leaves shining on glass, 2 kisses in one spot, exactly. Behold the scabs and cuts of city streets, crusts, stones, smoke, as many people as nails from a factory. Behold the space between each star, or a child under 9 laying her hand on another's face. Behold the foundation and the secret of it. Close your eyes and breathe. When seized, don't speak. Out there, each bird is another bird, each robin a robin. Each tree is another tree, each maple a maple. Each hop is a hop in time, each root is a fastener. Each bird becomes a bird. After each hop, a multiplier. Tree of seed, tree of location. 1, 2, 3, a bird leads us away. There is a little trouble in my eye. Hurt is the same for all, but manifests itself as rage in one and giggles in another. I cry because my tear is glass. One is a green bird with a black eye. One is a yellow bird with a red eye. One is a black bird with a blue eye. One is a brown bird with a golden eye. If you press the chest, there will be a song, each one different from the other. This is related to color. All but Paloma as gray as the sky when the snow is against her. And then this is a poem called Seen, S-E-E-N. A real bungalow is made of stone and snow-white mud on the inner walls, a large grate and a slate floor and a picture of itself. Every cupboard is old, every glass and cup wiped clean. The wind cannot get in, so the flies are free to buzz against the glass. Outside, blue twine is tied to a telephone pole and a gate to keep the brown cows in their field. Fuchsia hedges, clover in full juice, purple clover, purple heather. There's a silver line on the sea between green sheer islands. Now the sound of the wind playing a foghorn enters, forgotten. And I'm going to read this set of little, like, prose, completely insane poems from the book that's coming out in 2014, again from Grey Wolf, and this is the title group and title of the book to be, and it's called Second Childhood. And it's true, even though it's insane. I have a fairy rosary, I do, called Silver, who answers questions when I dangle her in the sun at the window. So I've asked her if I've a big ego, and she swings from side to say no. We have other children for friends. We don't understand why we're here in the world with horrible grown-ups, or what the lessons are that we're supposed to learn. It's not helpful for us to hear ourselves described in religious, geriatric, or psychological terms, because we don't remember what they mean. One cruel female said, "Don't laugh so much, you're not a child." My cheeks burned and my eyes grew hot. I decided to stop becoming an adult. That day I chose to blur facts, fail at tests, and slouch under a hood. School was my first testing ground. I misunderstood lessons, assignments, meanings of poems and stories, and misinterpreted the gestures of characters in novels. I was awestruck by geology, but mixed up the ages of rocks. I stared and giggled and refused to take orders and was punished. Throughout my life, I've remained vague and have accepted the humiliation it brought, almost as if stupefaction were a gift. I willfully repeat my mistakes over and over and never learn from experience. Every day has been a threat to this attitude, so I avoid obligations. For example, last night I dreamed I was on an airplane that was open to the sky, and a storm was coming from a hive of stars. And I wanted to sit beside my daughter to watch the wind as we strapped ourselves tight to the invisible seats and stayed awake in the air. If we had been grown-ups, we wouldn't have been able to see the stars or the storm. We would have perished. So my commitment to childhood has once again been affirmed. Read the signs, not the authorities. You might think I'm just old, but I finally decided to make the decision to never grow up and remain under my hood. We are like tiny egos inside a great mountain of air, pressed upon by the weight of ether. We can barely breathe. One ego is like a spider clutched to a web of its own making. It turns to enamel and hardens on fulfillment. Many egos fill up the whole body, every part to the tiniest hair. Some egos are like fingernails that have been stifled by brittle paint. All egos have something impersonal about them. They live deep inside like viruses, and unlike gods who play in outer air. But this ego covered my face with spider dust as I lay in my bassinet. Today I keep seeing gauze of a crystal kind, another kind of web of a type that doesn't harden but swings and shimmers. It's the remarkable web hood of a spirit. At birth, a baby failure is unconscious of the shadow that covers her face. It's from the success leaning over her crush, smudging out the color in her cheeks. The failure is born to measure the shadow of success. This is the failure's mission. The secret hood around her face indicates her vocation. The success arrives in triumph and is instantly obsolescent, while the failures keep trying, failing, and reproducing until another success is born. It could be centuries from their lifetime. It's not ironical but logical that the failure is the one who recognizes success and identifies its potential in her enemies. She it is who keeps their egos alive with her tears. She is their harshest critic. She who can separate the fraud from the living, the cold from the lukewarm. She's still a failure, a tiny ego who can't quite rise to the occasion of being. She's an id driven by longing, and she has crazy rules. If your whole body can't breathe the air, your prayers are incomplete. No nail polish. I think the gods and goddesses were the last good grown-ups on earth. Once I saw them walking to a party along a beach, and I could make out their shadows like a line of pines in an ocean breeze. They were laughing and calling to each other. Still, they were always aware of their mortal children's prayers and answered them, sometimes in the form of mist, sometimes with needles of sunlight. The gods existed outside the ego world, though they were certainly jealous and angry. Now some of them are pots and pans and wax and marbles, balls and kettles, rope and puddles. They emit a crackling sound when lightning hits the ground and give people shingles. Other gods have chosen to break out to heaven, where they blend into pastel and ride comets once a year. Sometimes it's hard to walk with so many gods bouncing around. So I use a broom, rosary, or cane to wave them away. And then I'll just wind up with a poem from this. You quoted a little bit of it. It's called I Am, and it was very inspired by the time in St. Petersburg and Dostoevsky seeing where he lived and where Raskolnikov walked. And although he wasn't a real person. And so there's Paul Celan, Oscar Levant are mentioned, Celan the poet and Oscar Levant, the wonderful movie star who played the piano and was always drunk, and Nijinsky, the dancer, and I think that's about it, and Alyosha, the Brothers Karamazov. So this is, I'll wind up with this. I traveled to the page where scripture meets fiction. The paper slept, but the night in me woke up. Black letters were now alive and collectible in a material crawl. I could not decipher their intentions anymore. To what end did their shapes come forth? To seduce or speak truth? While birds swept over the water like pot-bellied angels, beautiful bells rang to assist the hoist. Up they went to slake their thirst, drinking from the mist, for the sound of bells seemed to free as well as hold them. Then down to scavenge the surf and eat the innocent. I love God and the ferry too, wrote Kerouac. Only that which exists can be spoken of. I wonder, will our imagination remain a temple, burning with candles against all odds, behind a nipple and a bone, the simplest of glands laid in a circle around skin and liquid that stirs up imagery, winged and prisoned, as if blood were a wine inducing visions. Some people cry when the characters die. Then they kill themselves off stage, away from the pages that they are turning in the night. Some people sacrifice themselves on a whim and regret it later on paper. Now I see you in the window. Are you in the book I was looking for? The one who traveled back to the happy days when she could jump on a moving bus and swing in the open air, clutching a worn novel in her purse, a curtain, a knife, adoring eyes. I watched the children running and turned to Alyosha for a blessing. He was sunk in the morass of rural life. I liked to sit with him in the grass. Then we see the same thing at the same time in our one mind. We two masses, one a book, one a hand. When Alyosha spoke to the boys at the end, I anticipated their next question and his answer, for they formed a single gesture of kindness. Will we? We will. It seemed evil to read about people we would never meet. We tested their fortitude as if in sleep. They generally failed the challenge, being strangers in a strange brain. They were baffled by the tools handed to them and by the traffic's direction. Frankly, in a dream or story, the goal is absolutely hidden from the one to whom it matters. Eons of lily building emerged in that one flower. Eons, eons, pins and wool, thread and needle, all material made of itself and circumstance. It was a terrible century, consisting of blasted oil refineries and stuck ducks, fish with their lips sealed by plastic, and tar in the hair of cooks. Filth had penetrated the vents. Institutions moan from the bowels, balls of used cotton from the hospital dumpster redden. Yawning on obsolescence, the computer wonders, who punched in such poor grammar? First padded virgins graduate to this suffering drama, all by herselves, who once were selves. History is more than just another surmising grandmother at a window, or a reminiscence twisted in the scrim of translation. Some long ago light is pulsating in a trout's heart on a laboratory dish. That light has entered all the holes, no matter how small, because it's the light that wants to live. Still waiting for you, my sunshine of justice and mercy. If west is east of Moscow, depending where you're going, then will you ever find me coming from a northerly direction? Are you even looking at the earth? Remember, the map is flat, but everything else is not. Is the newest child the oldest body in creation? Does he carry more information than his mother? Does her mother, his grandmother, do I seem redundant by having arrived with less, though first? Is that why I read at night with my lips compressed? The fact is, I never knew if anyone felt me the way Nijinsky knew how to feel. Or Nastasia. Nothing could shock that woman who had done so much wrong. As if trained in a theater, multiple personalities streamed from her tongue. This made her an exemplar for our time. She knew how others felt and became each one, forgetting who she was before. I remember her as a child. Her skirt got tangled up in a thorn bush when she watched the sky. Shaking herself free, she had to see the spiders, ants, and dirt around her skirt. It was like peering into her own body, and she screamed in horror. Later, consolation would be extended by a man dark and handsome. It came with his semen when she wanted hibernation. She didn't commit suicide this time, but ran down Nevsky Prospect as it began to rain and paused to lift her umbrella. For this moment, we were, in our soul, a child, rushing home to Granny 5 floors up. I dropped the book, wept, and went to the movies. It's here where I can forgive someone for his crime. Poisoning babies for profit, Harry Lime. I can actually forgive it when he's crawling in shit. Otherwise, we'll stand on the Ferris wheel together forever, stuck in the fog and iron. I just a witness to his ironic story. He will be a mix between Paul Celan and Oscar Levant when we are at our happiest and no forgiveness is asked. Neurotic, pale, and drawn to the canals, we'll lean over the embankment like sister and brother who are tempted to be actors. It's here that his shoes and cat will converge in the dark, like fish in a secular city, flipping through sewers for a flash of Christ. Oh, thank you.